after almost 2 years of quitting the grid, they returned to Japan. Yes, you got it. I'm talking about Honda. But what if I tell you that Honda is coming back? Would you be surprised? If your answer is yes, watch this video until the end, as there might be some good news for you. Honda formally quit the competition in 2021. However, it didn't even do so very well. Given that Red Bull and Tauri continue to use their engines and will continue to do so until the end of 2025, there is only a little HRC emblem on the back of the engine cover, and no further Honda branding on these carryover engines, which Honda has continued to assemble, maintain, and update. This will alter for 2023 and allow Honda to reclaim the F1 spotlight partially. Honda's approach to Formula 1 has been peculiar throughout the hybrid era. It has only ever been an engine provider, and frequently there is little to no branding on the vehicles powered by its engines. However, it has achieved a new high when a deal was made with Red Bull to continue developing, maintaining, and supplying power units without ever using the Honda name. Now that Red Bull dominates the competition, Honda is receiving no recognition. However, that will change in some capacity for the next year, but the precise amount has yet to be determined. It depends on how visible Honda wants to be in a championship that it isn't actually playing in. But Honda will be more noticeable on Red Bull next year in some manner, shape, or form. Just a lot more branding might do the trick. Maybe the engine cover, the rear wing, or Red Bull could even rename the engine. You could now be questioning why Honda would even bother doing this for 2023 through to 2025, which is what this new arrangement will entail in whatever form it takes if they didn't do it for 2022. This partial recovery has more to do with Red Bull's next engine project with Porsche than it does with Honda's Formula 1 marketing plan. For 2026, Red Bull will collaborate with Porsche to produce its first ever Formula 1 engine. Red Bull wants to ensure it has access to all the benefits that will be provided to the makers of the new power units to do this, including additional dyno time and spending money. According to the original Honda continuing project plan, the issue is that Red Bull was supposed to use the engine from 2022 to 2025 under the Red Bull Powertrain name. Red Bull Powertrains would be building and maintaining these engines from 2023 to 2025. This ran directly counter to the notion that Red Bull Powertrains was a brand new engine maker because it would have been operating and servicing Formula 1 engines by 2026 for a number of years. The Red Bull solution has been relatively straightforward, attempt to keep as much space between Red Bull Powertrains and the Honda engine as possible. And there have been sort of two steps to this. First, Honda promised to keep maintaining and supplying the engines from Sakura in Japan at the beginning of this year, permanently for the duration of this entire tenure through 2025. Red Bull Powertrains would never agree to do this work. However, Red Bull only obtained authorization to utilize the Honda engines and never officially acquired the intellectual property rights. IP transfer was initially meant to be part of the plan, but this was altered when Honda continued to build the engines on its own in Japan. Therefore, Red Bull hopes that making the machines more visibly a Honda product will reinforce the perception that Red Bull Powertrains have nothing to do with it. Red Bull never actually had access to this. Then it will argue the new business is incapable of updating, maintaining, or assembling an F1 engine and is ignorant of current F1 technology, preferably prior to 2026. And this will highlight the lack of experience Red Bull has building Formula 1 engines. This is what is required to ensure the discounts for 2026. Even if Honda reappears on the entry list as the engine name, there won't be a proper comeback because an arm's length relationship will still be involved. However, there have been suggestions that Honda may be open to the concept of a legitimate comeback with the revised power unit regulations in 2026 for some time now. It is impossible to collaborate with Red Bull once more about the new engine regulations. Red Bull will shortly make public its cooperation with Porsche. So how is a complete Honda return possible? F1 has long believed that Honda may have grown to regret its choice to leave and is extremely eager for Honda to return. Musashi Yamamoto, the former managing director of Honda F1, is said to have advised Honda CEO that if the business intended to replace to F1 in the future, it would need to do it as a works team rather than merely an engine maker. Yamamoto has since left Honda F1 to join Red Bull Powertrains. Additionally, we've been informed that Sakura is still maintaining the engines Red Bull and Tauri are currently using, and is actively engaged in F1 research and development. It appears that Honda has continued to follow the debate surrounding the technical regulations for 2026. Honda won't have to start from scratch if the choice is made in the next couple of years to restart the F1 program. One of the issues is that Honda's F1 infrastructure was fragmented outside of its Sakura R&D site. Senior staff members now operate in many divisions, like Yamamoto, or the Honda employees who joined Red Bull from the UK HRD facility. We could also ruminate about Honda's lack of a European operating base for a long time. No current knowledge of an F1 team or chassis, a brief failed history as a work squad, and Honda has been mentioned as a potential buyer of AlphaTauri and a potential owner of Red Bull's sister team, but this appears unlikely. Honda's board would need to do a radical U-turn and invest heavily in the 2026 Honda F1 project to succeed. And there are definite grounds for doubting that would occur. Honda quit because the board felt it was necessary to reinforce its massive F1 research and development expenses into other business areas. After all, it has lagged behind competitors in sustainable technology development. Furthermore, it's difficult to say whether the present Honda board still has a solid link to Formula 1, let alone whether there's any type of unanimity or what the structure of a new program would look like. Historically, the best performing strategy has been to supply engines. But even winning the World Championship wasn't enough to keep the initiative alive. Honda has constantly failed in Formula 1 due to its short-term commitment. Honda would likely be well greeted by the Formula 1 and the FIA, who have already hinted that they may be willing to expand the grid beyond the current 10 teams if they decide to return for the sport for a fifth era. That glimmer of candor ought to be good news for people like Michael Andretti as well. However, the American F1 entry is being held at a distance. F1 stakeholders want to see proof of the advantages of adopting an Andretti Global F1 team in 2024. To put it simply, Andretti must demonstrate that its Formula 1 team would have the resources to be a severe and long-term addition to the grid, and would generate enough commercial interest, primarily in the United States, to offset the money it would cost Liberty Media and all the other F1 teams by splitting the revenue with another entity. But not yet widely accepted, this rationale is now clearly recognized. Many people believe that the Andretti name alone justifies an F1 entrance. Others are adamant that Andretti has the proper partners and finances. The most plausible explanation is that it prefers a new work entry like Honda and does not want Andretti Global to be an additional team. Because a worldwide manufacturer would have a much wider audience and appeal abroad, F1 would like one. The Andretti argument, however, has a history of being heavily reliant on the hypothetical advantages it might have in the United States. This felt disingenuous because Honda never demonstrated a dedication to F1 over the long haul. On the other hand, Andretti has been viewed as a not stable enough prospect. Automakers have always been drawn to F1 for various reasons, and they eventually succumb to the championship's allure. Look no further than the Volkswagen Group, which is poised to commit after decades of observing Formula 1 from a distance. Because of this, Honda would probably rank above Andretti in terms of importance in Formula 1, and despite quitting yet again, Honda doesn't appear to be able to distance itself from the sport totally. So yes, there is a slight possibility that Honda could return to the grid, but we can't say for sure. What are your thoughts about it? Do let us know in the comments, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye!